Welcome to ListenUp Podcast. And today we have Hailey Dollar. She is are you still running?
Yes, I am.
Okay.
I am
All right.
running for the congressional seat in CD3.
Okay. All right. I know you ran in 2025, right?
Yeah, I ran for the delegate seat in the 70th against Shelley Simons, but, lost my primary in the Republican primary. But, it's how we learn.
Right. So Hailey is a mother of three.
Four.
She's four. That's right. You have twins. Right.
Mhm.
Mother of four. She is an author and she is a libertarian, right? So you're going to have to
Yes,
explain all of that. So
of
she's
course.
done quite a few things. So thank you. Thank you for coming on and talking with us. Welcome.
Thank you.
Okay. All right. So one of the things I want to talk about is you're a libertarian, and usually right now we're in a political environment where it's independents are getting lost. It's the Democrats or the Republicans. Why are you a libertarian?
So I carry the libertarian values, which is about preserving the Constitution and about protecting the people.
Right.
And when it came to my race last year, I learned a lot. The libertarians didn't ask me to run. I had a previous Republican delegate come to me directly and say, I think you would be great at this. You should run. Let's go. And I thought, well, I've never done that before. I could be about this. And from the background and from the forefront of running a campaign, a very small one, having no knowledge, I'm not a political science major. If anything, I'm more knowledgeable in healthcare and the law. I'm currently working on my third master's at William and Mary right now. It's a master's of law, but falling back on my, two, I have a master's of science in health education, a master's of science in emergency and disaster management with a concentration on homeland security. So I have all of this knowledge, I have all of this experience wrapped up. And I found that when it came to a two-party system, I really just did not fit in with either. And neither one was really too happy about me being there. They were members of the Republican Party that loved me. They loved what I stood for. They were more, moderate or progressive. And when it came, to about November of last year, I got a call from the state party chair, and she said, how would you feel about running as a libertarian? And I said, well, tell me more. And the more we got to talking, I attended a few meetings, and I was just sold based on the fact that it's not about party politics. It's just about doing the right thing, actually exposing the issues that are there. And let me tell you, the longer that I've been in politics, the more that I've learned needs to be addressed. And people are terrified. They are scared to speak up. They're scared to point things out when it's almost obvious. I mean, I went to do a photo shoot at Congress and to do a tour 2 months back, and I published the photos. It was supposed to be like an Elle Woods going to Congress moment. I've always loved Legally Blonde. And it turned into learning about the expose of these sex cages underneath of Congress, which apparently many people know about, but no one's addressing. And I learned about this shortly after the last 80-20 vote, where they voted against, releasing sexual misconduct charges and files in Congress. My opponent, Bobby Scott, voted no on that. And I have, I have
Bobby,
issues with,
yeah.
and I have issues with the fact that the men and women that we have put into these offices that have this influence, that have the power to shape our very lives, can't keep it in their pants on the clock. And if anything, when it comes time to settle lawsuits with their staff or their family members or whoever they're doing this with on the clock, we're paying for that too. And I have major, major issues with the fact that these people that we've elected, if they can't keep it in their pants, if they can't do the right thing on the clock, then what else is it that they're doing? We're seeing so many issues within the party, so much money and fraud and programs, not just within the state of Virginia, but all over the country, where they would be allowed to go unchecked if there weren't advocates, people like myself and you, that are willing to go ask questions, that are willing to be on camera and say, well, I don't really understand what you're saying. Can you explain it to me? Can you give me some more details? And you always know when people have something to hide, when they might regurgitate a lot of text, but they're giving you no context. And I
Right.
started
So,
to see that at a lot of meetings that I went to. And when it came to the libertarians,
mhm,
it's simply do the right thing, follow the Constitution. We have our rights as a country. We're supposed to be free. A lot of it's, if you're not doing anything truly malicious or evil, it's the mind your business lifestyle. And I like that. Be neighborly, love one another, community. That's how it should be. And that's how I feel, will prevail as a nation. And I think that this current political climate is ideal for that, because a lot of people are sick of things going on the Republican end. There are people that are sick of things going on the Democratic end. And a
yeah,
lot of a lot of people are, lost right now because they feel that there is, what can we do?
right.
Everything's already so messed up. What can we do? Is there anyone who can truly do anything or is going to be willing to do so without backdoor deals and major lobbyist money?
Right. So I agree with you. As far as if you take a look at the elections, there's a larger block of people that do not participate in voting than it does for either one of the parties.
Mhm.
So there's something missing, and I don't feel like it's being addressed. So I do agree with you.
Mhm.
Now you were talking about the sex cages in Congress. Um, you've experienced, I don't know if there's reason it's pretty personal for you, but you've experienced sexual abuse and then even some human trafficking, right? So
Yes.
that's something that's kind of personal to you,
Oh,
right?
it's very personal to me because I don't want to see people being taken advantage of, and I don't want taxpayer dollars funneling that kind of lifestyle, Um one of the congressional aides, what was it, 4 or 5 months ago, literally set herself on fire. And you can't show me, you know, I can only imagine what someone had to go through for them to get to that point.
Right.
And I understand that it is a very stressful job, but as you being a survivor yourself, I feel that we can see things that other people don't see at first. We can see red flags, we can see patterns. And after going up to Congress, touring the halls, seeing the crypts, walking through the tunnels and all of that, I had the absolute ick. I had the
Yeah.
absolute ick. And I thought to myself, who would want to work here? It felt awful, just
Yeah.
bad energy, almost just like evil. And it's funny because people like to allude the fact that, I've in my last campaign, I got called the Antichrist and evil and a witch and all of this. And found it, somewhat humorous that, here I am at our nation's capital and I'm walking out like, oh, didn't enjoy that experience. And it wasn't anything that, any of the people that were working there did or said. It was just, when you walk into a space and you're just like, I don't know how I feel about it.
Right. So I want to talk a little bit about your background. You're an Army veteran, and you were in the military for what, 5 years?
Yes.
And you served as a medic.
Yes.
So something like that means that your interest is definitely people, taking care of people. So um, let's talk about how that's affected you now. Just being in the military. Obviously, you want to serve,
Mhm.
but let's talk about how being in the military has affected you and your view of um, the government and politics now.
It's a love-hate relationship, and it wasn't just serving in the army that,
Yeah.
has caused that feeling, because my closure of working with the federal government as a GS-11 employee, I planned on doing at least 10 years, buying back my time and, just riding it out, maybe hitting GS-12 or 13 and, sitting like everyone else does on a position, doing a good job. But after working for multiple agencies, you start to see the corruption in real time. You see that there is no accountability, that good people are ran through and let go when certain people are allowed to extort money out of taxpayers' pockets and these budgets that they put out there. And it gets to just be, when an example of this would be, I worked at the VA, and I had a direct supervisor who clearly had issues with disabled veterans. The person who was in the position before me, they went out of their way to try to trigger his PTSD. While going down to the union office to report, negative activities, because I had people like stealing stuff from my office and like all kinds of nonsense, they were trying to
Mhm.
push me out. And unlike peers of mine, who are, still coping with PTSD, and it's an ongoing process, but in
Right.
my many years of working in the entertainment industry, I learned how to control my triggers. And sometimes it's so bad that you can't. And if that's, the kind of night, I just stay at home, stay at home, spend time with my family. A hot shower goes a long way. But when people I've noticed, if they want to be truly evil towards you, they will go out of their way to try to trigger my PTSD. They'll get in my face, they'll scream at me, they'll make, and it's wild to me because because I have, 2 4-year-olds, I have 2 toddlers, someone in my house is always screaming. There is always, everything's an emergency, even when it's not.
Right.
So I've gotten to the point now where I'm not very reactive. And if anything, I'm probably more terrifying because I look emotionless, because I'm just like, okay, what's happening? Okay. All right. Not an emergency. Let's go. Because
Right.
I'm used to having to deal with real emergencies in real time. But what politics has taught me is that, it's a dirty game. People told me it was cutthroat. I didn't realize how cutthroat it was until I had to worry about people camping in my cul-de-sac, trying to figure out where I live, where I go. I'm actually about to pursue civil litigation against a volunteer with a company right now, because she has been, slandering and defaming me to lobbyist groups, previous delegates, law enforcement. And it's wild because someone who I've never done anything negative to is already actively in the background trying to blackball me in politics. And what's wild is, it's like, to a degree, I'm on your team. A lot of the things you stand for as a Republican woman, I don't agree with everything, but we have a lot of common ground there. And
Yeah.
it's wild to see these like
Mhm.
50, 60, 70-year-old women taking out these like mean girl roles. And I think that's why the party itself is suffering as a whole statewide, is because you have a lot of, young people that want to volunteer, that want to do good. They want to do good in their
The
community.
Republican Party, you think, is suffering?
Well, I know for a fact that they are, because we've
Okay.
seen like low turnout numbers. We see
All
that
right.
their
I want to come
budget.
back to that. I want to come back to that.
Okay.
But one of the things that, especially after what happened last night.
Yes.
So, one of the things I do want to say is, you're running as a libertarian. If
Mm-hmm.
you're running as a libertarian or you're running as an independent, the both parties, they have it set up so it's very difficult, for one, to get funding,
Mm-hmm.
challenge them, and then two, you have um, these people that, like you said, being mean girls or mean guys,
Mm-hmm.
and they have this political agenda to smear or
Fueled with hate, just hate and malice
yes,
for no reason. But I find that, yeah, it's a challenge. But here's the thing. The two-party system, I have to play by some of their rules. Now, when it comes to the state and the Fed, when it comes to all of that, right? the law is the law. But within party politics, they have a lot of rules and etiquette. And the thing is, as a libertarian, I'm not bound by those same rules. So if we're talking about, the French and Indian Wars,
Right.
who won? The people that didn't play by the rules, the people that didn't hit you just face on and do exactly what you were going to expect, that etiquette. And throughout my campaign over the next few months, I'm going to do a lot of things people don't expect. I'm going to do things that, are going to cause a lot of reactions. And, you know, I've gotten some feedback and most of it's good, some of it isn't, but it's fine. I'm treating this campaign like I would any art, like any performance, any choreography, any tour I've ever booked, any artist I've ever managed. I'm treating it as such. And so
Right.
yes, the Republicans and the Democrats are going to treat this like any good old political race. I'm not treating this as such. I am treating this as a full blown opportunity where, for example, on May 29th, we are hosting a fundraiser in Norfolk. I will send you the flyer. It hasn't been released just yet, but I'm giving you a heads up on that. And we're going to raise a bunch of money for a local charity that I'm very excited about. And I'm going to be performing. I don't know when the last time you saw a potential congresswoman or congressman perform when it wasn't giving a speech, but I will be performing. I will be making a statement. I will be raising money for our local community here in Norfolk and the 7 cities.
What are you
And
going to be
I
doing?
can't tell you yet.
Well,
Well,
I know
let's just
you're
say
an
I will
actor,
be
but
I do the acting
you're,
and the modeling, but one of my favorite pastimes, surprisingly, as you know, a mom with kids, I fell into drag. And so I have performed at drag shows as a cisgender, that's what they call it, woman, and it's called hyperfemme. And so it's just like superwoman. And so I have gotten to dress up like Dolly Parton, like
okay.
Ursula from The Little Mermaid. I've gotten
Right.
to do a little bit of all of that and just performing like a pop star. And
Yeah.
I've done bingos and brunches, and it's so fun. And so I will be debuting a new character. Can't give
You
away
don't,
too much,
yeah, yeah. You
but
don't
I
have
will
to.
I will say that you may see a congressman in his best form if you come on May 29th.
Okay.
My interpretation of that, at least.
Okay. So I want to go back to yesterday was April 21st,
Mm-hmm.
and we had a vote in the state of Virginia as a referendum to expand the Republicans for Congress.
Mm-hmm.
And it passed so that we could add more seats to Congress. What are your thoughts about one? Because we were talking about the Republicans, how
Mm-hmm.
it turned out, and what effect do you think it's going to have on things?
Well, right now, as I read, a few hours ago, it's been tied up in the courts, which was expected because anytime there's a constitutional amendment, it has to, pass the whole constitutional muster and review. And you can
Mhm.
expect lawsuits almost immediately with any imminent change, when it comes to the lobbyist interest groups, even just attorneys that are impassioned, like Tim Anderson out in Virginia Beach. He's always super involved in the community and ongoings. But we just have to wait and see where the cart, like where everything falls. And either way, I win. I'm a libertarian. If the lines stay the same, they're the same. It's the same geographic I planned on working with. And if it changes, then I get to inherit the beautiful city of Pocosin, which I'm very familiar with. I've had multiple opportunities where I've, spoken with their mayor, city planner, their chief of police, like really lovely gentlemen. And I think that, we could build a really great relationship and help build up the city and their economy there. there's a lot going on. They've got a big seafood festival, just local commerce, and the area is really up and coming with a lot of the new developments and housing. So
But is it up and
either way, I'm excited of how it,
yeah, but is it up and coming with the mindset that someone outside of the Democratic Party or someone outside of the Republican Party can be a representative for them? This is one of the things that I'm from Philadelphia, and so I'm a little more, I guess I would say, understanding of other people and their representation. And one of the things I've noticed since I've been here is it's not as open or open-minded as far as anything outside of what they've been doing for years. So I think you have a tall hill to climb, but I agree with a lot of the things that you say. So do you think we're in a position right now in this area where you can make a difference? I know personally can make a difference, but you can make an inroad to show them that you can make a difference.
Well, Al, I ruck marched a lot in the Army, and most of it was uphill unless I was in Georgia. So I've done a lot of walking in boots with a lot of weight on my back. Most of it uphill. Some of it was flat. It was a nice little break here and there. But the thing is, I know it's an uphill battle. But once again, let's get back to the current political climate. It's anyone's game. It's absolutely anyone's game. And like I said, I feel like I have an unfair advantage because I don't have to play by the same rules that they do, and nor will I. And their
I think people are looking
ideas,
for something different.
yeah, and their ideas of playing dirty aren't the same as mine. Everything that I plan to do is going to be so different than from what anyone's experienced in politics, because at this point you have to grab people's attention. They want to be entertained. I mean, TMZ is literally following around members of Congress now because that's how bad it's gotten. And the people are demanding that. That's what they want. I saw someone the other day that said, please start following these people around like y'all did Britney Spears in the early 2000s. Make sure they're doing their job. Put pressure on them. And I think that's why I'm not well liked in some circles, because I'm about accountability and I'm not afraid to take criticism, especially harsh criticism. I'm not afraid to answer questions, some of which we may need to sit down and have in private, depending on company. But I'm a pretty open book. And I think that's what scares a lot of people is I can't be influenced and controlled other than within the realm of I want to do the right thing and impact the most change for the most people. I want our community to be more safe, more sound. I want to ensure that our unhoused populations are taken care of in the summer months, which isn't happening right now. I want to ensure that churches can, focus on being, worshiping bodies instead of having to bear the full weight of what the state should be doing right now to help the unhoused, to help those who are in poor situations right now that need assistance. We have so many valuable resources in our communities. If we were able to just connect on a better level, communicate on a better level, put, a lot of politics aside and just say, instead of, I'm not helping you unless X, Y, Z, it shouldn't be like that. It needs to be. And a lot of libertarians are really against, public welfare and handouts and things like that. But I'm a firm believer that as a single mom, as a disabled veteran who has been homeless, and I was homeless when I was in college, sleeping in my car before I joined the Army out there in Hampton and Newport News. A Chevy Cavalier is not a comfortable spot to lay your head, but it's better than being outside in the elements. I've lived that life, and show me someone who works there, especially in city council in Hampton when they just did the vote to criminalize homelessness. Nobody wants a bunch of people walking around, without a coping mechanism, without help and therapy and whatever it is that they need. But at the same time, how is criminalizing people who are already disenfranchised, who already have close to nothing, how is that going to help them? Other than filling our, prisons with people, which is also going to come at the taxpayer expense. What we need to do is focus on healing our communities, finding ways to heal our economy so parents can step back from working 2 or 3 jobs so they can be at home, so they can be present for the games, so they can be there.
Yeah.
Every issue we have falls back on poverty and greed right now. Those who are suffering the most, I see them every single day. I have people that come to me that just need $50 to make it another week or two. They need grocery money and they have to give forward their most valuable possessions to try to do such because they have nothing else and they have no one else. There are
Let me
so
ask
many
you this.
people that yes, sir.
How did we get so people are just mean
Mhm.
and there's very little goodwill? How did we get here?
Because we're surviving. It's kind of like the concept of you put frogs in a pot, or even if you put a crab or a lobster in the pot.
Yeah.
If you don't throw it in the pot while it's boiling, it's not going to try to jump out. But if you slowly heat the pot, it's not going to know you're cooking it until it's too late, right? We have been in this pot for a long time, and this isn't even the heat cranked all the way up. But what I can tell you is right now, not just in Virginia, all over our country, people cannot afford life-saving medications. They can't afford basic procedures. They can't afford insurance, let alone premiums. They can't afford, name brand foods. And some of the name brand foods that are out there in the market right now, we're finding out are poison. How many times have we seen recalls in the last 5 years about arsenic, lead, things like that being in baby food, formulas? That's how we've gotten here. As Americans, with the cutbacks on many federal programs when it came to safety, reliability, accountability, screenings on things, as we've scaled back on different agencies and programs, we're starting to notice that our quality of life is slipping because when corporations are allowed to play by their own rules unchecked, they're of course going to provide us with the lowest quality they can at the highest price, whatever they feel they can get away with. Because at the end of the day, people are still going to pay. I see it every day when people bring jewelry into my store. Most dramatic example I've seen thus far was a woman was going through a terrible situation. She told me directly, the marriage was filled with domestic violence and she just wanted to get rid of this ring and she needed money to get back on her feet. I looked this ring up on Reed's Jewelers today. It goes for $8,500, right? But with the systems that we have, with the ratings that I do, I take measurements of everything I do, a whole process, and I do, compared to market value. Materials and that alone, completely covered, and it was one of the biggest diamond sets, completely iced out, the most my system told me I could give her was like $850. So that tells me that on the retail market, there are some industries that are literally, taking a product, at base value, and they're charging 100% over what the value in it truly is. And people aren't aware of that. And I told her, I was like, look, please go try to sell this independently first. And then if you can't come back to me, at least you know where I can meet you. And she came back, and thankfully this was during the gold boom. So the prices had gone up quite a bit. So I was able to offer her quite a bit more. But I see it every day when people are having to liquidate assets. And what's even worse is when they've gotten to the point where they have literally had to liquidate everything of value and they have nothing left and they're scrambling to try to find something. And you would think that it would be because of, drug dependency and things like that. And we do see that occasionally, but no, I think it's just because people are suffering. That most employers aren't paying, a fair wage right now. And yet,
Mhm.
we're learning they're charging the most. I mean, we're about to be taxed to death when it comes to DoorDash, mattress tax. I don't know how many, and with the new proposals for taxing firearms and ammo an additional 11%.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. So so how much are we going to be taxed to death before we start throwing stuff in off
It
the Bay
makes it
Bridge?
makes people angry.
Well, I mean, look at our history, the Boston Tea Party, and that was just over tea. They were so angry over the tea tax and the papers tax that was literally the final straw, and they went and threw it all in the river and said, "Well,
Yeah. Right.
kick rocks." So at what
Right.
point are we as Americans, as Virginians, going to say, okay, kick rocks? Because we know they're never going to completely unredact the Epstein files. We
Yeah.
know that they're robbing us. I just saw another article about how allegedly Abigail Spamberger's husband has a contracting company that they just allotted a contract to for millions of dollars. Um, and if that is true, I don't know how that's not a conflict of interest. And it's right in front of our faces. They're playing us as the American people, as Virginians, right in front of our faces, even with the language on the vote yes or no. It was confusing. The marketing was pure manipulation. I was sitting there watching it but the thing, and I do marketing for a living. So it's like I can read through the lines and I can see what you're trying to do. I don't like it when people have to be deceptive in marketing because the average voter isn't going to do research. They're going to trust you as their elected official to tell them how to vote and expect you to tell them how to vote within their best interest.
Well, I appreciate you coming on. So tell us where we can find you and then what events you have coming up and the dates.
Okay, so you can check out my website, $4FORVA.com. At the bottom of that, you will be linked to all of my social sites. I have all of them, and there's also like an access box if you want to send me an email. My phone
Okay.
number's on there if you want to give me a call. And big surprise announcement coming out this week. But yeah, May 29th, charity show in Norfolk, Virginia. It's going to be awesome, and you're invited.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
You're very
I
welcome.
appreciate you coming on, and we'll catch you next time on Listen Up. If you enjoyed today's episode, I'm going to ask you to click on the links below. Follow, subscribe, become part of the conversation. And remember, listen up.